Specialist Maths paper, paper 1, Tech Free 2020, we're looking at the multiple choice. And this one we're going to go question 6 to 10. Question 6 is a complex question. We're given Z and we're given W, and we're asked to find Z squared take the conjugate of W. So that's 2 take 2i squared, take the conjugate. So the conjugate will be -3 take I. It's then a case of 2 squared minus 2 by 2 by 2i plus 2i squared. Now that'll become +3 plus I. Okay, comfortable doing a squared straight out, don't need to FOIL it. So that's 4 minus 8i. Now -2i squared, 2 squared's 4, I squared's -1, so that'll be -4 plus 3 plus I. That will cancel, giving me 3 minus 7i. So that's going to be B as my answer. Just making sure you've expanded correctly. Question 7, slope values. The diagram shows the following slope field. The differential equation represented by this slope field is, and they've given us a range. Now, all of these are positive. Like there's no negatives, there's no actual negatives on the top. Some are just y and x's, some is y squared, some is an x squared, this one's both squared. Now, if you look in the positive quadrant, it's got a positive slope, so they could all be possible. Looking at a point in our first quadrant does not help us. If we look at a point, say in our second quadrant, so a point such as, it'll be -1, 1. The overall slope is still positive. Okay, we can see that the slope is still positive. Now, if we look at our options, if the x is negative and the y is positive, this first one would give us a negative slope, so it's not going to be that. If we look at the second one, the y being positive, the x being negative, that would come out as a negative, so it will not be that. C is a possibility because x squared, so that's going to square that negative and make it positive, so potentially, and D because they're both squared. So let's choose another one. Let's look at this quadrant. This is where it's negative, negative. Let's just call it -1, -1 if you want to. It's like sometimes easier working with a number. Its overall slope is negative. Now, we look at our two options left. If I put 5 times -1 over -1 squared, I would get a negative slope. So C is definitely a possibility. But when I did D, if I do the -1 squared over the -1 squared, even if it's a 5 there, I'm going to end up being positive. So that's why it won't be that one, and that's why C is my answer. So a question like that, using your reasoning of which is going to give us the correct answer. They're a little bit tricky, the slope fields. Question 8. An equation of a line passing through the points 2, 4, 5 and 3, -2, 1, which is the equation of the line? Now, they've given us the equation of the line in vector form, and they've also given it in Cartesian form. Now, passing through AB. So we want to find what is AB. That's going to be 3, negative 2, 1, take 2, 4, 5. Gives us 1, negative 6, negative 4. So this is my direction. So that's my direction of line. Now remember, in these vector forms, R equals A plus KD. That's my direction there. So potentially it could be B. It's not going to be A because it hasn't got the right direction. Looking in Cartesian form, the direction is actually the numbers on the bottom. So it's not going to be C. We know it's not going to be C. Could it be D? Well, potentially it could be D, couldn't it? Because even though we've got the direction as 1, negative 6, negative 4, we only are told that the line passes through the points A and B. We're not told the direction. So if the direction was B to A, it would be negative 1, 6, 4. Depending on which way the line's going. So potentially it could be that one as well, because the direction could be either way. We now got to look at the point it passes through. In this one, the point here is negative 3, 2, negative 1. That is not what point B is. So that's not going to be that one, because that's not the point. But here, 3, negative 2, 1, because remember this is always X, take the A, the B, the C. That's going to be our answer, because it's got the correct point. So it was okay if the direction, the negatives were opposites, but not with the point. The point has to be exactly that point. Question 9, stats. The scores on a test are assumed to be normally distributed. Researchers use the results from random samples of scores to calculate confidence intervals for the population mean. However, the shorter confidence interval, width, is required, so the researchers decide to use a second sample for their calculations. Assuming that the standard deviations for both samples are the same, the researchers can ensure a shorter confidence interval width is produced by doing what? Okay, so we want a shorter confidence interval. Now remember, when you do your confidence interval and you've got your X bar, and then it's the margin of error is ZS on square root of n. That's how much it goes either way. Now we're wanting to shorten that up. Now the S is staying the same. If we change the sample size, if n is bigger, n is increasing, we're going to get a smaller margin of error. So we want increasing sample size. We're not going to be A or B. We must have an increasing sample size. Then it talks about, are we decreasing our confidence level or are we increasing our confidence level? Remembering 95, say for a 95% confidence interval, its Z is 1.96. For a 99%, it's 2.58, I want to say. If we go 90, it's less. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. So this Z score if we've got an increasing confidence level, it gets bigger. So we're going to get a bigger margin of error. If we decrease our confidence level, so it's going down to 90, Z is actually getting smaller and we're actually getting tighter. So C is our answer for that one. That might be one you need to think about a little bit later and maybe talk to your teacher about. All right, and then we've got question 10, which is a subset question on angles, which is fairly tricky. We're told about the arg. Arg is always our angle. Arg. Now I'm going to change this as, to get the correct format. So Z take 1 minus I. And I'm going to take my pi and 4 to the other side. Negative pi and 4. So we can clearly see that because they wrote Z plus I minus 1, I want to express it as Z take my point. That gives me my starting point for my arc. So 1, negative I. So potentially 1 across negative I, potentially could be right. 1 across negative, potentially could be right. C is negative 1, positive I, so that's not going to be right. And D is the same. So our choices are between A and B. From that particular point, we want an angle of negative pi and 4. So this is going in the correct direction. The other one from that point would be going on positive pi and 4. So B is our answer for that one. So that's questions 1 to 10 of the Tech Free 2020 paper.